Hello, welcome to episode 46. Thank you for joining along if you are listening, and if you are new here, welcome. The format of these episodes have changed slightly, and that is a good thing, I think. But if you've listened to last week's episode, you will find out all about that as well. But I do encourage you to go back to the very beginning to hear my story and all of my journal entries that I have read out for several years of my pet loss experience. But for this week, what we're going to focus on is a kind of controversial one, but the big R word, relief. And that is very, very rarely spoken about in the topic of pet loss. And I do feel like it is an appropriate time to touch on it, to explore it, to delve in, I suppose, a little bit deeper. I've definitely mentioned it and touched on it in other episodes, down through the last year and a bit, but I think delving in a little bit more might be of some benefit to people. And if this isn't the episode for you, that's okay. But I do encourage you to have an open heart and an open mind when listening to this particular episode. It can be difficult for people to digest, but also it can bring awareness and can normalise feelings of relief following pet loss for a lot of people. So I guess there are lots of talking points around the topic of the relief that we might feel following pet loss and following the death of our pet. And I suppose from my perspective, I did get some feelings of relief several months after, not necessarily instantly, but they did surface sometime after, and that is okay. That is perfectly okay. Some of them I'm going to share with you, and I think to start off, personally for me, one of my dogs was very reactive on the lead, and my other dog has had a lot of behavioural issues due to being, treated really badly in a previous time before I adopted her, and also obviously experiencing trauma. So they were both difficult to navigate, but I suppose I kind of educated myself as best as I could. I got some advice from behaviour specialists, and of course you can only kind of educate yourself as much as you can. I mean, sometimes there's an expense to everything in life. Let's just not sugarcoat it. And I wasn't flush with cash at the time, and I think just reading up and doing a couple of courses about canine behaviour and things like that really, really helped me to feel in a better position to manage life with my dogs and their behaviour, basically. And I never felt resentful to them for that, but where relief came in for me was I hadn't realised the amount of daily stress and anxiety that was within my body, in the cells of my body, until they had gone. And that was only a small section of what I was feeling, but in particular, let me explain this further so it doesn't sound wrong, but the daily stress that was in my body that I wasn't aware of. I was completely unaware of this, just so that you know. So having to monitor the environment, where are quiet places that I can bring my dogs for walks, to help with my dog's reactivity, my other dog's behavioural issues, and so that they could be as comfortable as possible, and that I could facilitate the least amount of stress for them, and in turn for myself, I guess. And I think that navigating that daily, weekly, monthly was difficult, and I didn't notice that until they had gone. So that kind of element of stress had left my body, which was obviously going to be of some benefit to my body because I wasn't experiencing that underlying level of stress or anxiety about trying to control the environment, which we can't. We can't control the environment. We can't control every single situation, and that's just the way life is. And I think that was difficult for me because I wanted my dogs to enjoy all things in life and go to all of the places that all the other dogs get to go to, and sometimes that wasn't possible, and I really wanted that for them. And sometimes I would make the wrong decision and put them in a situation where it was uncomfortable for them or stressful for them, and I would get annoyed with myself, but that's okay, it's okay, and that caused stress and anxiety. So that was just giving you an idea of what the word relief meant for me. I felt a sense of relief because I wouldn't have to navigate those situations anymore. And even though I loved the experience of them when they were a really positive experience, and the joy that I could see it brought to both of my dogs, like, that was incredible. It's such a conflicting feeling. There's elements of relief, but there's elements of guilt, and there's elements of I wouldn't change it for a minute, and that's often what I come back to. But I think acknowledging that there is a sense of relief within that somewhere is what I'm gently trying to bring into this conversation in a really gentle way. That life has challenges, and the relationships we shared with our pets had challenges, whether we want to acknowledge them or not, and whether we're in a place to acknowledge them or not. That's okay. You may not be there. It took me a while to get there, but every single relationship, even human relationships, that's what we experience. So I kind of think that gently bringing in this subject and going a little bit more in depth into this particular subject can be beneficial for those of you listening that are feeling guilty and eaten up by maybe feeling some sense of relief over the loss of your pet, or following the loss of your pet due to whatever the circumstances were and what you had to go through with your pet. If we were kind of to highlight a few points on this, it would be easing of suffering. Like, a sense of relief can come from knowing that your pet is no longer in pain or discomfort, especially if your pet had been struggling with, a diagnosed illness or like an age-related death. And this relief stems from love and compassion. That is what this relief comes from, and that's perfectly okay and normal to feel that. Like, a caring decision is what us as pet parents make, like a caring decision towards the end of the life of our pets, and choosing to let go of a pet, especially through euthanasia, is often an act of profound care. That's why I mentioned it's just a caring decision. And pet parents can feel that relief knowing that they made the best decision for their pet's quality of life, even if it was a difficult, heart-wrenching, painful choice to make. And I often kind of talk about this on other episodes, that we always want to do the best for our pets and give them the choice when possible, where possible. But taking that choice away from them at the end can be something that we just continue to torment ourselves about. Obviously, there can be the relief in having come to that final decision, because the lead up to those final decisions can just tear us apart, can rip our heart out, and that's okay. It's okay to have a sense of relief once the decision is made. It's okay to feel that sense of relief. So like I kind of mentioned a few minutes ago, the end of daily stress, and that is something that I had just mentioned at the beginning was coming from my perspective. But for example, managing a sick or aging pet, can be physically and emotionally exhausting, and that is the absolute reality of it. And it's natural to feel then that sense of relief as that stress kind of lifts and leaves us, while still like deeply missing the companionship and the love that our pets provided to us. It's that end of the daily stress, because it's particularly managing a pet that was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and for however long that had gone on for, there was stress added to that. So there is that sense of relief when that stress lifts slightly. So that's kind of sense of acceptance after watching the decline of your pet. And some people might call it like closure, but I don't like to use that word closure, because I don't believe that the relationships with our pets ever end. I feel that the connection can live on. It's just the physical aspect ends. So the word closure is always one that I challenge, and I feel that acceptance is a really, really healthy word, and it sits right for me. And whether closure or acceptance sits right for you, that is completely unique to you. So try not to overthink that. But like witnessing our pets' health decline can be heartbreaking. It can be devastating. And after the loss, we may feel relief from the emotional strain of watching our pets struggle. And that's even though we miss them dearly. It's in tandem, it comes hand in hand. We may feel the relief of the emotional strain of watching them struggle for however long that was. But that does not diminish, or that does not erase how much we miss them every day since. There's definitely another point I want to touch on, and it's space for grieving our pets. And I think that the relief of no longer seeing our pets suffer can allow then for us to focus on grieving and memorializing our pet, and maybe trying to bring up those happy, joyful memories, rather than focusing on the final days and being consumed by the final days. Now that is all easy for me to say like that, but if you're feeling stuck in your grief, that can be a very, very hard thing to do. And I've definitely spoke about that on lots of previous episodes if you have listened, but to go back if you want to know a little bit more about how to navigate out of that stuck place that you feel like that you're in, that you cannot begin to process the loss, or that you can't reach those happy memories, that you're stuck in those last few days and moments of the life of your pet. But another one would be like the time to heal from the loss. Like, grief is so overwhelming. Pet loss grief is so overwhelming. And we may find relief in having time and space to heal. After devoting so much of our life, our energy, our love to caring for our pets' needs, without feeling guilty about it. And guilt will come hand in hand sometimes, and we can't prevent that. But there is that relief in having the time and space to actually begin to heal and process. Whereas all of our time was taken up with devoting our energy to our pet that was nearing the end of its life. So I think that that's an important one. there's always, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the guilt word, the G word. And I had that big episode last time about guilt, and I think there's been a couple of episodes I've done on guilt because it's so prominent, and it's one of the most commonly spoke about topics that I speak to clients with on my sessions, on my grief support sessions, and I think that it's relevant to speak about it as often as possible. But as pet parents, like, we often spend time wrestling with the tough decisions about our pet's care and the finality of the loss, really. The finality then of the loss of our pet can bring an element of relief from that internal struggle that we're kind of experiencing, while still honouring our deep love for our pet. So we are trying to wrestle with the time that we're spending making tough decisions and dealing with our pet's care, and I do feel that that's really, really difficult, and I really think that freedom from the guilt or doubt, the doubt of doubting our decisions and the guilt that we're feeling, there's an element of freedom there. Now, that can come a long way down the line as well, but and then a focus on positive memories, which can come when we begin to process our grief. That can be difficult for some people to get to if they are feeling stuck, like I mentioned earlier. But once our pet suffering is over, many pet owners that I speak to experience that kind of sense of relief, being able to then focus on joyful, fulfilling moments that they shared with their pet, like, rather than being consumed by the worry of all of the circumstances and all of the situations that were going on with their pet. And often they need some guidance and support getting there, but that is okay too. That is totally okay. Relief can also kind of come in the knowledge of knowing that it's the end of a chapter for your pet. And also granting yourself permission to rest. And I feel that caring for a pet, whether the pet was ill, in whatever way the pet was ill, or even if it was a sudden accident and a traumatic accident that just happened out of the blue, it can be exhausting, whether caring for that pet or dealing with the questions of, I could have prevented this, what could I have done? And the constant asking of questions. And permission to rest, then there may be a sense of relief from the physical, emotional kind of turmoil and toll that we put on ourselves. You know, once we come to some form of acceptance of the circumstances of what happened. But I think that if I'm right in saying, a lot of you listening, if you have felt a sense of relief, or have felt even a touch of it, an element of it somewhere in your pet loss journey, that I feel that hand in hand is that love and bond and respect for your pet. That no matter what amount of relief that you have felt, it does not diminish what connection and love that you had for your pet, and feeling guilty about feeling any kind of sense of relief is unhelpful for us, and is going to, be hurtful for us to kind of move through the grief and give us permission to rest and give us permission to process and to let out the emotion. And guilt can eat us up, and I spoke about it a lot on the last episode, but I do understand that if you are feeling conflicted with the word relief and pet loss in it being in the one sentence beside each other, I totally get it. I totally get it. And I grappled with this for many months until I admitted to myself that it's okay, Louise. It's okay to feel a sense of relief, because sometimes life was hard, navigating reactivity, navigating a dog that was scared of the smallest noise or whatever that may be. Sometimes our own nervous systems were in fight or flight, were on high alert, and when they have calmed down and eased, then there is that natural sense of relief. And I just said to myself, that's okay. It's a good thing. Relief is a good thing. It was positive. But that does not mean I'm not hurting, and this does not mean that I have any bitterness towards my dogs or their behaviour or what they went through or what I went through. It's just having compassion for yourself and being gentle with yourself with this topic. It's okay to feel a sense of relief. It really is. If you've been even a couple of years caring for your pet, and you were able then to just go out to a cafe to meet a friend for lunch or for coffee, and you aren't able to do that for a couple of years because you were caring for your pet, or you had to work out some arrangements that someone would check in on your pet or take care of them. And now you don't have to do that, and there's such a conflicting sense of deep sadness and grief, along with a sense of relief that you have that element of freedom to meet your friend for that lunch or that coffee. They come hand in hand, and I want you to know that that's so normal. I want to normalise feeling a sense of relief. Be that a small amount or a large amount, it does not matter. Because you feeling that sense of relief isn't a reflection on the whole relationship that you shared with your pet. It's not. Just an element of how you feel. It's an emotion. It's an emotion that has come up for you after the death of your pet, and that's okay. Some of us feel anger. I felt a sense of anger. I wasn't ready for Ozzy to die. I hadn't planned for it. I never even thought about it in my mind. It was a sudden death, and I was not ready for it. And I was angry with him for leaving me, and that's okay. That's okay as well. So, healthy anger is good. To be in touch with our anger. Maybe that's another episode's topic, because I'm sure many of you listening may have felt something similar to that. But I hope that I have, somehow made you think or brought to your awareness that, yeah, you know what, there was a bit of relief, and whether that's relief for your pet, that your pet is no longer suffering, whether that is relief for yourself, that you're no longer experiencing that daily stress, that caregiver stress, whether it's relief that you can now try to focus on all of the rest of the relationship and not just the final days and the last few hours, that you're giving yourself permission to do that. And whether that's relief because you can actually feel that you can start the grieving process, even though unknowns to yourself, anticipatory grief was alive and well in the run up to this. If you were expecting the death of your pet, but there is relief in so many aspects of the relationships with our pet and their death, and I think that that's important to highlight, and I hope that that has, helped you to, have like a gentle awareness of maybe some relief that you had been feeling that you might have been pushing down and feeling ashamed about or feeling guilty about. So I might ask anyone's listening that if you have been feeling that, or if that has struck some kind of intuition inside of you, would be just this week at some stage or over the weekend or whenever you get to this, is to get out your journal and just write down this journal prompt and just write, have I felt a sense of relief since my pet has died? It's a really, really, really simple question. And just see what comes up for you, and think about it in the sense of, have you personally felt relief? Have you felt relief on your pet's behalf? Have you felt relief on the caregiver's behalf? Have you felt relief in a sense of freedom? What comes up for you? And just journal on it and see what comes up. It might be very helpful, just simple journal prompt to work on in the coming days if you had some time to, and I hope you do actually. So I will tell you, definitely schedule in some time. If you even have to book it in your calendar in your phone, do that. Schedule in an hour, 30 minutes even. This is your pet loss grief time. This is for you. This is self-care. So I hope that this episode has been of some help, and thank you so much for listening and always being a part of this journey with me, which I am going to continue on for as long as possible. You can't get rid of me. I'm going to talk a little bit next time on the next episode about a loss that I have recently experienced. So we'll delve into that next time, because there definitely is not enough time here to talk about it. But take care.